There we go. Okay, let's start that again. Dr. Foley is received his medical degree from Chicago Medical School in 1984. He then went on to do obstetrics and gynecology residency and maternal fetal medicine fellowship at the Ohio State University Hospital in 1988 and 90 respectively. Dr. Foley practiced maternal fetal medicine in private practice for more than 20 years and recently retired from the role as chairman of obstetric and gynecology at the University of Arizona College of Medicine, Banner, Phoenix University, where he served for nearly 10 years. Dr. Foley is a national and international lecturer, as well as a sought-after motivational speaker and mentor. He is a founding instructor and faculty member of the Dan O'Keefe, MD, Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine's Academy for Leadership and Development, which is in its 8th year, training hundreds of medical leaders and professionals. Dr. Foley is also an award-winning teacher and author. He's published numerous scientific articles and is a reviewer for several medical journals. He is the lead editor of the Obstetric Intensive Care, a Practical Manual, published by McGraw-Hill, which is currently in its 5th edition, and is also a co-editor for the Critical Care Obstetrics 5th and 6th editions. Dr. Foley is also an 8th degree black belt martial artist, grandmaster, and the founder of the Center for Humane Living, a 501c3 organization whose mission is to inspire all people to live peaceful and compassionate lives. He has been teaching martial arts and conflict management out of his center for the past 30 years and has written an award-winning book, The Art of Humane Living, Martial Arts as a Path of Peace, published in 2004. He also authored Ancient Wisdom for Life Fulfillment, published in 2010, and Inhale, Reflections from a Beginner on the Path to Mastery, published in 2019. His most recent book, Leading Humanely, Integrating Modern Leadership Theory with Martial Arts Philosophy, was published in October of 2023. So without further ado, here's Dr. Foley. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. So take a nice deep breath and just relax, because I'm not going to bombard you with lots of scientific data and facts this morning. It's going to be something that I believe is probably one of the more important aspects of your success as a physician and leader. And that honestly, you don't really hear about it. I can tell you that I was the leader of Phoenix Perinatal Associates for a long time. I was the president, et cetera, as you heard. And I got thrust into all these leadership positions because I was a pretty good clinician. That's pretty much how people decide physicians should be leaders, is because they're pretty good doctors. Unfortunately, though, I don't know how many people had formal leadership training in their medical school residency programs. I did not. And we're often thrust into these leadership programs ill-equipped to lead teams, to be the advocates for the important aspects of what we're trying to accomplish in medicine today. So my lecture today is kind of along those lines. It's to talk to you a little bit about leadership. And let me go ahead and begin. I have no financial relationships. I'm a medical advisor for Sarah Prognostics, which has nothing to do with my topic today. My background I heard a little bit about already. Of course, I'm a maternal fetal medicine specialist, obstetric critical care person. But since the age of 7, I've been training in the martial arts. My brother is one of the original SEAL Team 1 members back in the 60s and 70s. He was a frogman and he introduced me to martial art training as a young boy. I continue to train for now almost 60 years, and that has really permeated the way that I lead, and I've kind of understand that. So what I found is that not only are there some really great information out there now in leadership theory about how we ought to be thinking as physicians on how to lead our colleagues, but also there's ancient wisdom from the aspects of the martial art training that add a little humane leadership ideas. And I'm going to bring those back to you, because doctors, nurses are leaders now. You're going to be thrust into leadership because you're going to be an advocate for the care of your patients. And you're going to be thrust into leadership both nationally, as you see, with lots of governmental concerns, et cetera, that are going to be in front of us that are going to impede our ability to get what we need for our patients. So we need to be smart leaders, not just great clinicians. The way that I accomplish this is, and you're gonna find it kind of odd, is I'm gonna tell stories. I can tell you, I've been on Capitol Hill several times to try to convince the NICHD to give us more money, to be able to do more research. And I can tell you that if you go there with buckets of data about how this and that need to be done and show all the legislators this data, they just kind of get glazed over and they don't even pay attention to you at all. You tell them one patient's story though, that story, it grabs them. All of a sudden there's this human part of it. It's human. And that's what people are looking for. So such the name of the topic today is Leading Humanely. And I'm going to tell you some of these stories that are ancient wisdom stories from various different aspects of the world, maybe from the Navajo Nation or Zen or whatever it might be, but they're universal truths. And the stories are kind of strange sometimes because they end abruptly without a clear answer. And your job is to think about them and see how they might kind of be relevant to your life. So I'm going to jump into that right now. Yeah, get rid of the bar on the bottom. Thanks. The way I'm going to approach this is I have several pillars that I'm going to go through. I don't know on the time frame with the introduction and so forth, I'm going to get through all 10 pillars, but I have an interesting activity at the end, that brochure we're going to get to. So I want to make sure that we have time for that. So I'm going to try to get to my pillars. But you know, this ubiquitous term of leading a balanced life, you see it all the time, right? All right, so a show of hands. Raise your hand if you think or you want to lead a life that is balanced. Raise your hand. Balanced act. Okay. Now, what I hope to be able to do to you right now, or do for you right now, is to convince you that you don't want a balanced life. And it's sometimes semantics, but maybe not so much. If you look up balance in the dictionary, it says something like marked variation across this fulcrum, utilizing significant amount of energy to attain an equilibrium, which is never quite achieved. Balance is the teeter-totter at the playground. Have you gone to the playground and seen a teeter-totter laid out across the fulcrum balanced? No, one end's always down, right? And if you want to balance that teeter-totter, what do? You got to go and pick it up and you hold it. And that's what balance is. It's lots of energy holding it, because pretty soon you put it on your shoulder, you put it on your backside, and then you get frustrated, you just let it fall, it hits the ground, take a couple of breaths, you get some energized, then you go back and pick it up again. It's difficult, it's frustrating, and it's doomed to failure. If you're looking to balance, balance is a dichotomy of this versus that. And life is far more complex than this versus that. Got a lot of balls in the air, don't we? We got things like family and career and personal interests and community interests and spiritual interests and financial interests. We have a ton of stuff that we're trying to balance, but you can't balance those. Now contrast that with this, harmony. What we're really looking for is harmony. Think about it for a second. If you look up harmony in the dictionary, it says something to the effect of strumming multiple notes or strings simultaneously to create a beautiful chord. Yeah, that resonates, right? A beautiful chord. Isn't that what we want for our life? I like this. This is a bass guitar, one of my students. But let's look at it from the perspective of a real guitar with 6 strings. If you want, anybody play the guitar? Yeah, so you know that if I tune 3 of the 6 strings, how's my chord sound? Terrible. If I tune 5 out of the 6 strings, how does my chord sound? Still odd. It doesn't really sound beautiful until you tune each of the 6 strings. So what are the 6 strings that we ought to be looking to tune? Here they are. And you know, I'm not expecting you to read this. The slide deck will be available for you, but the 6 strings are these things. Now, I actually sit down with my residents and faculties for the last 20, 30 years, and my home situation with my kids. And we sit down with a piece of paper with with a topic: career, family, spirituality, community, personal, and finance. And we write short-term goals about each of those. So career, you want to find short-term and long-term goals about And like, maybe you need to get this paper, maybe you need to pass your boards, maybe you need to get this job, maybe you need to learn a certain skill set. These are all career goals, and we're pretty darn good at those. The fact that you're here today is that you're identifying the need for your career to be advanced and to learn. So career goals are pretty easy to check that box because you're doing it all the time. Family. Family is short-term and long-term goals are about your family. It's with your partner. Your partner is the most important aspect of your ability to make a harmonious court of life. So you have to have short-term goals about how you're going to continue to enhance that relationship with your partner. Your kids, your parents, your grandparents. They're like tender flowers, and if you don't water them, they will die. So do you have short-term and long-term goals on how you're going to maintain that communication? Because that time is the currency. How are you going to do that? What are your short-term and long-term goals? I mean, my wife and I have done things like we take a walk and we debrief every day. You know, you just have to figure out how you're going to do this. Special time, we had 3 kids. I got to spend time with each individual kid, not just as a group. So you have to work through that family goal. Spirituality is the next string. And the spirituality might be an organized religion. It may not be. I know many people that are very religious that are not necessarily spiritual, and many people that are very spiritual and not necessarily religious. But nevertheless, you have to define that for yourself. It has to go on your calendar if you're going to go to mass or a temple. You need to make sure that that's available to you. And if spirituality comes in the form of long distance running, Pilates, meditation, yoga, you got to make sure that it's on your goals. Because that's where your spirituality, you got to remember that you got to tune each one of these strings. Now, the community string is often difficult, many of you in training. You don't really have the time to go out and do community efforts. But at the end of the day, I can tell you that if you look at the blue zone areas across the world where people live over 100, you come back to tell you what was the big and most important thing in their lives. It wasn't how much money they made or even their children or their career. It was what they were able to do to impact others. And what they're doing to impact others is community. It's taking your skill sets and actually giving them away to improve the life circumstances of someone else for nothing in return. That's your community. Right now, it seems like, I can't really tune that one yet, but you can in the future. You begin to think about it, and that's enough tuning for right now. And if you are having time, figure out how to make that happen. Because when these blue zone people are on their deathbed, they tell us that the most fulfilling part of their life is what they did in the community realm. Now, many of you, not all of you, are incredibly talented in various different domains. You can match at a residency program here or be on faculty. You had to be somebody really, really special, more so than just passing a test. And what you have are these skill sets. I mean, I've had residents that are NCAA Division I MVPs in soccer. I have all these people that do all these things, artists, songwriters, musicians, things that really make you who you are. It's a personal string. And if you don't put that personal string out there, instead you put it in a box under your bed and wait till your residency or your next career advancement's gone, and then you could do it. Let me give you a clue here. You're not going to do it. It's going to be too long gone. So to be who you are. Now you might say, well, I can't go play soccer anymore. Well, you can coach. You can bring that passion for life that defines who you are right in front of you to do that. Now, of course, the last string is finance. And I don't know, anybody here a certified financial planner? No. So we think that our knowledge in medicine allows us to have knowledge in other domains. Let me give you a clear understanding. That is not true. That is not true. What you need to do to tune this string is get somebody to help you, get a coach. Even at the level of medical students, if you get a coach to be able to understand what you're going to need to do for the future, to be able to build legacy, family legacy, get a coach that can help you do budget, simple things like that. And then to begin to understand how you're going to repay loans and things like that, you need to take that burden off your back right now and to move it in the forward direction of tuning the string. Now, if you see all these strings here and you sit down and do the time to fill out these strings, you've taken the major priorities in your life and you've actually put them to paper. The next thing you do is you speak them out loud to bring them to reality, to someone who really matters to you, that can hold you accountable, and them to you. This is a drill that I've been doing with my wife and our family and all my residents for years and years and years to give people the control over their own lives. Because burnout in medicine is prevalent, right? And burnout happens when we lose control. This is an opportunity to gain control. Now you might be saying, well, that's really great, Dr. Foley, but there's holes in that. I can't always do all those things and it just doesn't work. And how do I make decision and prioritize this? Well, that's where we come into the second pillar. Now here you see a number of my students standing on the edge of the beach, and they're in a stance to hold them. And you can see that some of their feet are covered in sand and the waves are coming back and forth. This stance is called the front stance. It's the most stable stance that we have in the martial arts. It's the beginning stance, and it tolerates the changes of the shifting sand and the waves that hit you from side to side. You adjust it, but there are three components of it. The components are is the front knee is bent, the back leg is locked out, and the belly button is forward. What does all that mean? Well, this wisdom of the wave, as we call it, that kind of knocks you off balance in life sometimes, is overcome by the stance, the front stance. Now, the front leg being bent, back leg straight, belly button forward, reflects certain things that we have to control. Our front knee being bent is our ability to shock absorb up and down like a shock absorber on your truck. When you hit a speed bump in life and something's thrown in front of you, you can go over it. Then the back leg locked out is the kind of the lean-to holding things up for you. It keeps you stable and in structure. And the belly button forward is your true north in the direction you're going. Those three components actually are what we move to when we have trouble finding out which priority of our harmony goal should we use. Because this is your personal mission statement. When I talk about leadership, it's great to give you all this philosophy about leadership, but the first thing that you need to concentrate on is leading yourself. Leading yourself is to have your harmony goals in place and to define for yourself what this front stance is. And let me give you an idea what mine is. Just to throw it out there for you. So my front knee bent, my ability to accommodate the speed bumps of life and allow me to go over these things is my commitment to lifelong learning and teaching. My commitment to lifelong learning allows me to navigate over the speed bumps. My back leg locked out is the support and my commitment to do things in the direction that makes things wonderful for my family. How that support of my back leg, my family and my faith support held me up. My belly button forward is my true north. These are irrevocable truths for you in every situation. My irrevocable truth is my commitment. My true north is to transcend. In other words, it's to take what skill sets I have and give them away to improve the life circumstance of others. Now that I'm retired, this is what I'm doing almost all the time. I run a martial art program here in Phoenix, where I've been running it for 30 years. We teach for free, and we've been doing so for 33 years. The Center for Humane Living is our organization. That's a 501c3 charitable organization to teach for free and to transcend. So this transcendence is my true north and my direction. What your homework is to sit down and figure out what your harmony goals are and to be able to sit down and what's your personal mission statement? What are your irrevocable commitments? What's your commitment to provide you flexibility over the speed bumps, stability, the onslaught of what's coming, and a true north direction for you? Those three directions that you create for yourself, you sit down and be thoughtful, that actually fills the gaps of the things that you can't figure out on your harmony goals. We talk about lots of things in the martial arts, but we always begin it with a bow. And when we bow, we put our head lower than the other person. As you can see here, by putting our head lower than the other person in a bow, it kind of demonstrates our relative worth to the other person. In other words, we're being vulnerable. And the Japanese would say that you offer your neck. And that is actually being as vulnerable as you can. So what we're talking about is the bow. Now, the bow really is the way we show respect. And if I was to ask you, what do you think martial arts are about? You'd probably say respect and discipline. But what does respect really mean? Defining it is kind of like defining love. Respect means that you organize your thoughts and actions around the existence of something or someone. Organizing your thoughts and actions around the existence of something or someone. That's respect. And when we bow to someone, we show them respect. And I'm not saying that you gotta, when you go back over to the hospital, go to the circulator in the OR and bow to them, or it just doesn't go well, right? They're gonna think you're a little crazy. But there's a way of thinking about respect in everyday interactions, and I call it respectful communication. The silent message of the bow, when I'm bowing to you, I say to myself silently, you are more important than I am in this interaction. Well, that's pretty hard, right? Does that mean I'm less than anybody? No. It just means that I'm giving you the attention and making your interests during this communication more important than my interests. Well, think about it. Last time you were in a conflict with someone and they said something that just kind of got your ire up and it was untrue, and you were waiting for them to take a breath so you can launch in with your defense. You've heard it. Were you thinking about them or thinking about you during that interaction? Of course, you're thinking about yourself. Respectful communication means that we make the other person more important. The first thing we do is we close our mouth and listen to them. First thing we do is listen to what they're doing. Now, actually listen to them, not just hear them. Kind of play it back on your little tape and say, what I hear you saying is, and then when you say to them, okay, I understand. Here's what I heard you say. I'm going to clarify the message you just gave me. When you do that, most conflict falls away because people just want to be heard. And if you tell them what you heard, that often cuts the conflict in half. Now, sometimes what they said to you hurt you, made you feel mad, bad, glad, sad, whatever, uncomfortable. Then you have to validate, is that what they intended to do? Or is that your own narrative? So you validate the intent. So when you screamed the F-bomb over the nurse's station at me the other day, was your intent to belittle me and make me feel hurt? Well, at the time it might have been, but I can tell you that nobody's going to say, yes, it was. What they're going to say is, oh, no, I'm so sorry. That's where conflict falls away again. And then what you do is simply make a request of, well, okay, I understand. Please don't do that anymore in the future. I'm going to hold you accountable. Because if we really have to have this expectation that you can't hold people accountable until you set expectations for their behavior. Honestly, they didn't read the book, Everything You Should Know in Life You Learned in Kindergarten. They didn't read it. They didn't know about please and thank you and respect and all these things. So you have to say, no, I don't want you to yell the F-bomb across the nurse's station at me to get my attention. Like you really should have had to say that? No. But you have to set expectations for them. Now you can hold accountability. So the bow is really how we organize our thoughts and actions around the existence of the other person by closing our mouth, clarifying what we heard, validating the intent, and then making a request for them in the future. Then you're on a path to move forward. And pillar number 4 says, how do we go forward? Well, the martial arts are really clear with this. Each step is a belt rank. You get in there and you start training and you get your white belt and your uniform first, and you get orange and yellow and green and blue, red and black. And this is how you progress. And it's a path that we go through. The students that come in sometimes and said to me, the very first thing said, they walk in and they're like, gung ho, and Dr. Foley, how long does it take me to get a black belt? What do you mean? Well, what if I practice, I don't know, 3 times a week? How long will it take me? And I said, oh, maybe 6 or 7 years. Okay, what if I practice, I go to all the classes, I go to 6 or 7. Then I said, 10 to 14. Why so long? Because if you're focused on that target, you miss the process. You miss the whole purpose of the training. Let me tell you this story, is that if we're going to move forward to something, we have to be thoughtful and purposeful in how we do that. We have to do it at a metered pace. You can't blitzkrieg it. The student can't learn everything. So there's this Great by Choice book by Jim Collins. You might have heard about it. It's a very famous book, a leader's book, Great by Choice. And he talks in this story about these 2 explorers. One explorer, his name was Admundson, and the other explorer's name was Scott. And they were racing to try to race the other team to the South Pole by dog sled. So Edmondson, well, let's start with Scott. Scott is kind of a go for it kind of guy. All of a sudden, they started off on the race to the South Pole, and it was a beautiful day. So he went as far as you can go in 50 to 60 miles. And then when he got there, his dogs were exhausted. His team was exhausted, and he had to hunker down. And then the next day was this really bad snowstorm. And then he was too exhausted to go in the snowstorm. So he had to wait another day or two to get through that. And he then waited for the next sunshine and went too far again. Whereas Edmondson, he was thoughtful in this. He was going to go 20 miles every day, rain or shine. First day was a beautiful day, went 20 miles, stopped, rest the dogs, went to a less amount of supplies, was rested. And then the next day when it was a snowstorm, he went 20 miles because he was okay from the day before. 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles. Well, Edmondson made it to the South Pole and won, and Scott and his team died. There's something really important in this story. And Jim Collins pulls this out, is that the reason why Edmondson was so successful in making it to the South Pole was because of three really important things. One of them, that he was fanatically disciplined to go only 20 miles. 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles. He knew that that was the best approach, those stepping stones to get there. The next is that he used all the data, the empiric data out there, to be creative and how he fed the dogs, how he brought the water, how many dogs he brought, how many days they stopped, etc. He was incredibly creative. And then he was looking out for the things that could kill him and his team, because he was paranoid about it, but it was a productive paranoia, not fear. Productive paranoia, empiric creativity, and fanatic discipline are what made Edmondson successful. Now we think about it. We're doing a project. We're doing a submission to the NIH for a grant. 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles. We're applying for this or that. 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles. Be productive, paranoid, be empirically creative, and have this fanatic discipline, but don't wear yourself out to get there. Be a little bit at a time. The martial arts would call it Kaizen. And Kaizen is incremental improvement to reach success. When I was a resident, I had this wonderful story, and pillar number 5 talks about it is that, well, I can even tell you that how it works now is that when you get really tired and you're exhausted from life and all the things you do, let's plan a trip to Sedona. All right, let's go up to Sedona, let's clear our head, maybe get a massage, or maybe I set up that I'm going to get my mani-pedi at the time, or I'm going to get I'm going to be able to go on a vacation. And this is how we try to deal with the exhaustion that we deal with every day, right? We're looking at the next vacation, the next self-care modeling. But let me tell you about self-care. True self-care is not that. True self-care is being able to be together all the time. It'd be great, right? Well, let me tell you about this story. Is that I've always imagined this beautiful little house with a white picket fence around it, a little cottage overlooking a lake, and had a little gate in the front. And in my yard there, I spent a meticulous amount of time putting together flowers and fruits and vegetables and made it just manicured so beautiful, and a beautiful lawn. Then I invited in my family. Come on in. Of course, my wife and family, and some of my close friends, my colleagues. Come on in. Come into my yard. And then what happened is that people are walking by and they say, "Hey, Foley, would you mind doing this?" "Oh, yeah, sure. I'd be happy. Come on in." "Hey, Foley, can you help me along with this pathway?" "Oh, yeah, come on in." And I would say, yes, 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 to all these requesting people that were requesting pieces of me. And I've invited into my yard to the point where I'm standing on my porch and my yard is so full of people I can't even see the flowers. They're all being smashed by everything around me People are like stumbling on them. And I'm looking around, I don't know how to recognize anything. And I said, everyone, get out of my yard. So I threw everybody out, including the people I wanted there. That's burnout. Lost control. My emotions didn't stand there. I just didn't see them as friends anymore. Out, out, out. I said, close the gate. And I'm standing there by myself looking at the ruins of my life. What I learned from this story is that there's a magic word that's a complete sentence. No, period. No, period, is a complete sentence. And it's sometimes hard to say. And sometimes you have to create a polite decline, particularly if you're a resident or a trainee. And sometimes you just have to endure it. But you know that you're going to be able to align what you say yes to with what your strengths are, what brings you in energy, what you love to do that doesn't really work. Yes, yes, yes. Say the magic word, complete sentence, no, for things that don't align with those. Because if you keep saying yes because you want people to like you, and that's what you do, or I'm in a subservient role, yes, okay, I'll do it. I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna do some of that. But try to say this, and sometimes, thank you for that incredible offer. I can see it's really, really important to you. But I have to tell you, it's not my strength. Mary Jo over here is incredibly good at this. I think because of how important this is to you, I would recommend that you have Mary Jo do it instead of me. A good leader would say, whoa, self-recognition, good idea. Mary Jo, thank you very much. And so what are your strengths? And then you tell them your strengths. These are the things that I would do in the future. If you don't put these boundaries out, you can't care for yourself. These boundaries are truly real self-care. That's what they are, real self-care. So understand that. We're going to try to motivate you as physicians. You're going to try to motivate your team as a care team. We are working at how we are motivated as professionals. There's this wonderful book and a great YouTube video by Daniel Pink, who wrote the book on the left called Drive. And then there's also a book, Carrots and Sticks Don't Work. I can tell you, my grandparents worked in a cannery in Nebraska City, Nebraska. That was the only big cannery they had there. And they put labels on cans. And when they got an extra pay for putting more labels on cans, guess what? They put more labels on cans. Because it really wasn't a cognitive, emotional relationship thing. Putting labels on cans isn't that. But what we do is not putting labels on cans. What we're doing requires emotional intelligence, intellect, relationship development. And we can't do more just because we're going to get paid an extra dollar. And in fact, if you get paid more, it works for about 3 months, and then you have a new goalpost. And it doesn't motivate you anymore. Carrots and sticks don't work in motivation. If I tell you you're going to take more call, you're not going to get vacation this year if you don't do X, Y, and Z, those are even more powerful motivators, but they don't work in the long run. There's database after database from animals to social studies to everything that says exactly what I'm saying. Look at the video by Daniel Pink, and you'll recognize that there is something that motivates us to do what we do as physicians and care management teams. Gone are the days of the carrots and the sticks. But what's important is Pam. Pam. I write Pam because I'm big on acronyms to help remember things. Pam is like, okay, if I want to bring someone in and motivate them as chairman, I want to bring somebody in as a young faculty and motivate them. I'm going to give them a clear purpose for what I want them to do. A clear purpose. And then when I get that clear purpose, I am going to throw them the ball. Go play on your own. I'm not going to stand there micromanaging what they're doing, because if I micromanage every step they're making, that means that I don't trust them. And you've been in this situation. You probably feel that some situations. You have to trust the other person to play the game. You just give them a purpose, give them the ball, and then you need a touch base on how you're doing. So I would say, okay, here's what I want you to do. Here's the purpose. Here's the ball. And then every 3 months, we'll sit down and look at the data on how you're doing. How's that sound? Great. Because that last part is called mastery. And mastery is kind of like why we play the guitar or why we do things, because we want to get a little better at it. Mastery is a motivator. It allows you to get information that allows you to improve. And you're sitting in here because you're really good at that. So we give purpose, we give them autonomy to make the decisions and move forward. And then we do kind of a metric around that allow them to show them they're getting better and to keep tabs on the whole thing. So as you're building a model to influence change, that you're trying to motivate people to move in the direction, and we're not putting labels on cans. Think of purpose, autonomy, and mastery to do so. Now, I got just a quick little demonstration. Let's see. Can I borrow you for a second? Yeah, come on up. I'm going to move this over here so you can see me. Yeah. I hope. What's your name?
Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. I'm on.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. So, Stephen, see if you can move it. Okay. Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Have you trained in the martial arts?
Actually,
Yeah. What? Just.
I did American Campo.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So what? You're right-handed. So I want you to grab me with your right hand. Okay. No, a little faster than that. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this move here called Cavalier, and I'm going to move in this position. Now, I want you to verbalize what you feel right now. Pain. Okay. Say it loud. Pain. Okay. Now, stay here a second. So I want you guys to tell me why does he feel pain? Come on, it's not magic. Why does he feel pain? Yeah, anybody.
Twisting ligaments.
I'm stretching his ligaments. No. I am stretching his ligaments. But the pain actually doesn't come from me twisting his wrist. The pain comes when I got him up here and I'm pushing this way. In his brain, he's pushing back. He's resisting me. Even at a subconscious level, he's resisting my force. My force is going this way. He's coming at me at opposite. I got an NFL lineman and I lined you up against them and you go head to head. Guess who's going to win? You're going to get crushed if you try to go. But now, what you do this time is that if I push this way, you then move your hand to your elbow, to your shoulder, see, in the direction. And at the same time, you bring your elbow up underneath my chin. So that when I grab you and I push this boom, the harder I do this, the more I get hit. It's the Mr. Miyagi Cobra Kai thing. You've seen it, right? You know, it's like the little guy can win this, right? Because it's all about blending. This is blending. This is not force something, it's force. This is actually blending. Thanks so much. Give me a hand for stepping up. Thanks. So we don't resist. If we resist is where we get pain. You can see that. You want to meet that stronger force, not an opposite, but you want to move in parallel with it. Because if you go in parallel with it, you could see that all of a sudden he was able to gain control and direct it. Whereas if he's fighting it, all he feels is pain. And the one that's got the upper hand is going to cause you to have more and more pain. Now think about this model and what we do every day. Think about it in terms of medical legal issues. How about pharmacies? How about hospital mergers? How about RVUs? How about whatever you think that's out there that is this huge, powerful NFL lineman coming at you, and you just don't like it, so you're going to run right into it. Guess who's going to have pain? You. So to get change and particularly advocate for many different changes in legislator and all the things that we have to do, you have to blend. You got to go with it in the direction they're intending for a short period to gain control. So you're not getting resistance. You're going in the same direction. But then actually, as you get more knowledge in that direction, you get the reins and you get to direct it. You get to influence it just a little bit more. This is what I want you to think about is that as leaders, if you just resist everything, you're going to have pain. If you learn to blend, you're going to make change. Now, this is my daughter's cat. I put her up there because she has such beautiful eyes. I wrote an article for the journal called American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology about this, because I would go sit on rounds, particularly in July. It was great. And how many people are new residents? Brand new, right? Okay, so you'll hear this, and I want you to think about it a little bit. Is you're sitting on rounds and we do dot, 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 dot. This is what we do. Why do we do that? It's the way we've always done it. That's the way we do things around here. Get used to it. You'll hear that. Have you? Yeah, of course you have, right? So let's talk about that, what that means. See, there was this martial artist, and he had this beautiful little studio and lots of students, and he was kind of an older guy, and he had a cat, much like the cat you saw in the picture. And the cat would roam around the dojo while everybody's practicing their karate. Well, the cat climbed on the mat sometimes and got in the way, and he, being afraid for the cat and interrupting the class, he decided to put a little collar on the cat and put a leash and tie the cat to the pole in the front of the dojo. So the cat can be in there, but not getting into trouble. So years go by, every day, the teacher would come in and tie the cat to the pole, bow everybody in and do their karate. Years after this, the cat passed away and the teacher passed away. And the new people inheriting the school were the students from the past. And they came in and one became the leader of the school. The first thing he did was to go out and buy a cat. And at the beginning of every class, tied it to the pole. That's the story. And doesn't it sound absurd? It does, right? Why do we tie the cat to the pole, said one of the students. That's the tradition. That's the way I've always seen it done. Tying the cat to the pole. And think about this. I know in obstetrics and gynecology, I'm sure in pediatrics, there's a gazillion things that we do because we did them. There's some things that we've kind of jumped off of that we did that are probably we should have not jumped off of them. So some things are probably pretty good that we kind of pushed away. And there's some things that we do and no one can really say why. What I want you to do is understand that sometimes by asking the question why, and is there a better way of doing that, that we have more resources to bring even more time for things that we should be doing. We're bringing evidence to this. My point here is ask the question about why. Look at the data supporting what you're doing and reevaluate your cats. This is what leaders do. I'm going to skip this one and move to this one because this is the fun. In the martial arts, we actually break bricks. This is my daughter, Molly. I know when she was younger, she's crushing this cement block with an elbow strike. Molly is a black belt master right now. She said, Dad, don't use this picture. I said, I won't tell him who you are, Molly. I'm not using her last name, right? We break things in martial arts because it's kind of cool, right? We break boards, bricks, ice boxes, all kinds of things. And why do we do that? It's not a show of force or how cool we are or how fancy techniques that we use. It's really to break free from self-imposed problems we have. Negative assumptions about what we can and can't do. Negative self-talk, self-doubt. I can't do that. Breaking a board makes all the difference in the world because that board, does it make any sense to slam your hand or elbow through a board? No. But when you do it, it actually enlightens you that every problem you get to is minuscule if you can break a board. I have many of my residents every year break a board, every year for 30 years. Many of the residents have gone on and framed them. Some of them are chairmen or departments across the country. They frame that board and put it over their desk. It reminds them they can do it. Whatever it might be, whatever obstacles thrown in front of them, they can break the board. Now, when you break a board, it requires three things. One of them is courage. You got to step up to the board. And then when you get up there, you got to have skill. Woe is the martial artist that steps up to the fight with no skill. Just because they have courage, it's a problem. So breaking a board is something we can teach you in 1 minute. And then when you break the board, you don't break to the board, you break through the board. In other words, you go past it you follow through. So breaking a board really talks about how we approach all the problems. We have the courage to jump into the fray. We have developed skill sets to lead through it, and we follow through and do what we say we're going to do. So just so happens that I loved stuff for you to break a board here today. Here's what it looks like. Real boards. Look like a real board to you? Yeah. On TV, like on Cobra Kai, they use skinny little boards. They ain't this. This is a Home Depot board. Yeah, real. It's a real board. So I lug these in from the car. And I realized how old I am. These, you're not gonna break these. So what I'm gonna have you do is break it. So who wants to try? Raise your hand. Go ahead, raise your hand. Come on up. Give her a hand. Have you broken a board before?
Yes, yeah.
Ah, okay, I'll give you two then. So
It's been a few years.
I'm Lisa.
It's been a few years, but
So Lisa, are
Yeah.
you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm left-handed.
Okay, so you're gonna go down. Okay. And you're gonna put your right hand on the brick. Yeah, and you're gonna ball up this hand and you're gonna go. Cause she's broken. I bet you didn't break it with an elbow, did you?
No, I did not.
Move over just a little bit. Hey, do we have a first aid kit? Just kidding.
I'm not actually.
Okay, so make the ball up here. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna break this with your core, not with your any strength. And you're
Right.
just gonna lean through it like that.
Okay.
So you're gonna come high and you're gonna go past. And the reason that hands there so you don't hit your face on the brick.
Okay.
So you're gonna reach to the ceiling
Okay.
and you're going to imagine that right there. And you're just gonna go through it and you're gonna go through it really, really fast and hard. All the way as slow as you can go. Ready? Wait. Everybody stand up. Give us some energy. Yeah, give us some energy. Give us some energy. Come on. Okay. You like it? All right, crush it. Crush it. Yeah. Lose weight. Wait. For jumping in the fray here. Well, let me write on this too, because when you show the board to them, they won't believe you broke it. What's the date today? What's the date today? The,
7:23.
what is it? 7/23. 24. Good. And so the book that you heard about is called Leading Humanely. I'm going to give you a copy of that.
Thank you so
Enjoy.
much.
So thanks so much. Give her a round of applause. Yep. So here's what we did. You saw courage to try, still skills to get through it. You saw I taught her the skills and followed through. You got to give it to her. She just got up and did that, right? This is what you're going to be doing. Every time you have a challenge that you're going to run into, you're going to have courage. Emotional, physical courage to step into things that are difficult and uncomfortable for you, whether it even be a conversation. You're going to have skills. There's a whole skill set around crucial conversations that you can learn that when you step in there, you have some skills to how to carry on the conversation to manage conflict. And then you're going to follow commitments. If you make a commitment, you're going to do it. And that's the follow through. And just with this breaking of the board, it's how we meet all the challenges in life. So as we're following up towards the end of our presentation today, I just wanted to review for you the pillars. We talked about harmony and balance and how important harmony is, and the 6 strings of harmony to create for yourself and to write short-term and long-term goals for that. A personal mission statement, which is your stance, your life stance, with your front knee bent, with your flexibility, what you're committed to get that, your back leg locked out, which is the stability that you have, and your belly butting forward to give you great direction and purpose as you're moving forward. We talked about how the bow is, you are more important than I am. It's respectful communication where we listen, we clarify, we validate intent, and then we make a request. And then we talked about if we're moving directively as a leader, you can't push your team too hard or too fast. You can't push yourself too hard or too fast. You have to have a purposeful direction. And that purposeful direction is your 20-mile march. 20 miles, 20 miles, 20 miles. And while you're doing all these things, you have to learn that magic word, no period, sentence. You have to set self-care in terms of boundaries, what you can and can't do. Now, some of it is going to be difficult as trainees, no lie. Your attending is going to ask you things and you're going to be doing things that may be a little bit outside of your strengths. But you really need to be thinking about that now, so that you stay motivated. And staying motivated means that you have a clear purpose, you have autonomy, that somebody's giving you the ball, and that you get a little better at what you're doing every day. And then you learn that there's going to be things out there that are just going to beat you up, and they're immovable. And instead of hit them face to face and fist to fist, you're going to blend instead of resist. And then you're going to go back and as you think about things as you're doing and growing in your department, in your home, your situation, that you're going to look for those cats tied to the pole. And you're going to try to see if there's something there that you can grow through and change. I didn't talk about broken, but it's finding strength in imperfection. You can take a look at that. It's the ability to be able to break something and put it back together and make it even more beautiful than it was before it was broken. And then we talked about breaking free, breaking through self-doubt, negative assumptions about what you can and can't do, to have the ability to step into the fray with some courage, develop those skill sets, and to follow through. That's all I have for you today. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time and open for any questions. Yes.
The finding your boundaries and saying no, I think it's a very valuable lesson. I think that though early on in careers or in a new position, you don't know what to say no to.
Right.
And if you consider that every opportunity could be potentially what's going to move your career forward, I think it's really tricky to say this aligns with my path, this doesn't align with my path. So what advice would you have for someone who's sort of earlier in their career trying to figure out what to say no?
So the question for people online is that early in careers, people often have difficulty identifying what they're good or not good at, and have a difficulty in identifying what to say no to, because many of the times just by doing things, you help identify what that might be a strength for you. My answer to that is that you're right. It is difficult, particularly in early training. There is one thing that I've done with the residents and we do in our leadership programs is to go through something called the Clifton Strength Finders. It sounds like another test, but basically it identifies your 5 core strengths or talents. And the 5 core strengths and talents never change. They don't. If you do it, this is a really validated assessment, and the top 10 are always the same. They may rearrange in order, but it gives you a sense for recognizing maybe you're a strategist or a futurist or a positivity or a relator, or the various different aspects of those are. Those are your core talents. It may not be developed yet. That when you put knowledge and strength around those core talents, they become strengths for you. So in order to identify not just in your career specifically what to say no in, because it's hard because you don't know enough about your field yet, but there are other things to say no in terms of other commitments outside of work. You know, all the other strengths, for example, career and professional growth is one strength. So if you could take the Strength Finders test, identify your top 5 strengths or talents, and then begin to say, hey, these kind of make sense to me. Then when you're saying yes or no, are they aligned with those strengths or not? And they may be, they may not. And some of those strengths you may not recognize as talent. They're just talents because they're not strengths yet. Like what you're saying is that you may have developed into a strength because you spend a little more time, knowledge, experience, and becomes a talent and makes it into a lifelong strength. But the talents are there, they're inherent, they were born with them. And so what you're able to do is identify, hey, maybe that's one of my talents, I should say yes. Or maybe that's my strength, yes, I will do that. If it's not, and you get this feeling in your stomach that this is something that is not going to be the way I want to go, move forward. For example, I have a lady that she was a faculty member at University of North Carolina. She came as one of the leaders in maternal fetal medicine, and she got back to her institution after hearing this. And she said, Dr. Foley, there's a letter on my desk that wanted me to be part of the IRB, which is a huge honor for my department to be included from our department and IRB. There is nothing that I want to do less than to be on there. I have no skill sets at all. I am not talented at all. I don't have any idea why they're doing it, where my partner right across the hall is like amazing. So she went down to the IRB leader and politely declined, and her person became that leader. She was able to identify, it just didn't feel right. It isn't something that I'm good at. It makes me feel sick. I go, it's called a Sunday night test. What is it that makes you feel sick to your stomach that you're going to be doing on Monday? It's probably not your strength. So those are the kind of an idea and thoughts about that. Hope that's helpful. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate your time and attention.
Everybody, right there, we're trying to do just a simple one question evaluation for everyone, so. I think that would be great. Thank you, Dr. Foley. Oh.
I should run across this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's good. I don't know. I feel like, I'm still at the point where everyone's doing a patient I'm at a new hospital right now, like I feel like I'm dying. So, I kind of feel like that's too, like, thank you. Good.
Oh, thank you.
Different, but like in a good way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. How did you find it?
Belter.
Oh,
He,
yeah.
and he just told me Belter's one of his black belts, he said, so.
Interesting. That's really awesome. Good.
Good talk. It was fun to get some, like,
Yeah, especially at the start of the academic